following program brought to you in part by Hemp Shield and CanIHelpYou.care.
Welcome everybody to the 27th annual Seattle Hempfest. Thank you for being here today. We're excited for some cooler weather, no rainstorms, keeping that vibe going for a nice mellow Hempfest for everybody. So a lot of people think that this is just a big party where people get together and smoke weed. And I'm here to tell you it's so much more than that. So this is a free speech event. The key word there being free. Where else do you know that 100,000 people come through for a festival with 4 stages, thousands of attendees, 1,000 volunteers, 400 vendors, 80 musical acts, hundreds of speakers, and they don't have to pay anything for it. Totally donation based. We put this on 27 years in a row without ever charging an attendee any money, and that's really an incredible feat thanks to the thousands of volunteers who make it possible. 100 of them are year-round volunteers actually on core staff that work on this all year round so that you all can come out here. It's also about reform. So from the 1998 medical marijuana law to the 2012 passage of legalization in I-502, Hempfest has been through 27 legislative sessions since it began, and all the special sessions in between. Our core staff has worked on laws like PTSD being added to the medical marijuana law, cannabis health and beauty aids, of course our medical marijuana law and our legalization law, and all of the regulatory challenges since. And even more incredible than that, our voter registration team is just about to register its 10,000th voter at Hempfest this year. Over 27 years, we've registered 10,000 new voters. Huge feat just by that team alone. And lastly, we're a community. People come and go, volunteers come and go. We work with some incredible legends in the activist community who pass away, and new legends are born. It's a really cool family to be a part of. Very special place to be. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Sunil Aggarwal. He is the author of 24 peer-reviewed publications that have been cited all sorts of places. Really cool thing he did was the National Institutes of Health issued him some certificates of confidentiality for his work at UW, which was a pioneering thing that happened in this movement along the way. In 2009, he led a push at the American Medical Association to review marijuana scheduling. He works at all sorts of places throughout town, Associate Medical Director at Multi-Care Hospice. He's a private physician at Sage Med in Bellevue. And he's about to embark on an adventure as the medical director of the newly formed Advanced Integrative Medicine of Seattle Institute. He's a homegrown guy, been here a long time Hempfest speaker, attendee, and supporter. And he's going to tell us about how far we've come, the latest in international developments. There's some big stuff happening with the World Health Organization and the United Nations for you all to know about, and the role that Hempfest has played in shaping his perspective along the way. Welcome, Sunil.
Thank you. So this is all about racism and classism and bigotry. It has nothing to do with medical risks of marijuana or cannabis. Just so we're all clear, this is Hempfest, but this is about human rights and freedom and dignity. It has nothing to do with what the laws say that we have to have these extremely punitive, backwards regulatory schemas in place. And I just want to make that very clear. Though we use the word cannabis and hemp because we love this plant has so many virtues, so much use in history and in medicine and all kinds of medicine systems, and social uses, spiritual uses. Why we talk about it is because it unfortunately has been saddled with so much of our worst social behaviors: racism, classism, sexism, and you name any other kind of ism that we've, as a people, have had to get past. And unfortunately, with cannabis, we're still stuck with some of those same ideas that come back pre the civil rights era are still in the laws that we have today. And what I wanted to tell you about is what's happening at the World Health Organization and the UN. because it's amazing. This is these kind of movements that are happening at the international level. We are leapfrogging over our federal government. We're leapfrogging over our state government. Activists, NGOs, human rights organizations, public health organizations, people who are trying to reduce the amount of criminalization and violence in society. People said, we have got to get engaged at the international, the UN level. Because if you actually look at the history of attempts to reform laws here, you always get the message from the federal government, well, we are a member to international drug control treaties that prohibit us from regulating marijuana in any way but the way that we're doing. And as of really just a few weeks ago, the first time that the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs asked the World Health Organization, do you think that we should review and change our minds potentially about how we have placed cannabis and cannabis resin in Schedule 4 of the International Treaty? The Schedule 4 is their version of Schedule 1, just a different numbering system. The WHO came back and said, yeah, we actually haven't reviewed this since 1940, late 30s or 40s, formally. This has never been done. And in that letter, they cite the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, which was the treaty that was established by and pushed for by Harry Anslinger before Kennedy retired him. And Anslinger is like the godfather of the DEA, the godfather of ONDCP, the entire, like one of the greatest architects in the development of prohibition of drugs and substances as a tool to suppress and control the population. So he pushed for the 61 treaty. I've reviewed the notes of those meetings, and many people opposed it, many countries opposed it, but the U.S., in its post-World War II glory, took the lead, took the cake. And now that same system had built into it a way to move things out of it, and that system is being engaged and activated, and now it's going for what's called a critical review. The WHO says we need to review this. They recognize that there are medical uses of cannabis resin. They recognize CBD should not be controlled at all. They recognize that this whole schema has been built up based on no scientific rationale for the prohibition levels and controls that what we have been saying at Hempfest since the very beginning. So, okay, guess what? So it has nothing to do with lack of evidence or fear of harm, scientific basis of all the things. It's really now about questions of commercialization and control, because we are now in an era where cannabis is not dangerous. Cannabis is so valuable. Who is going to control it? Who is going to get the benefits of it? And guess what? We already know the answer. That is a traditional plant whose values and benefits belong to all of us, the whole international global community. And that's what we now try to argue about, or what we advocate here at Hempfest, descheduling of cannabis, reversing so much of the damages caused by this system that even the international system is now recognizing is seriously flawed. The state of Washington must stand with us. State of Washington, they did try to ask the federal government to reschedule cannabis. Some of my work was used in that petition. My mentor helped write that for Christine Gregoire, a previous governor's office. But they did not appeal that decision when the DEA said no. But, our governor is willing to fight the federal government on issues of immigration. Washington is willing to take the lead on issues of human trafficking. We take the lead on global health issues around the world through many philanthropists and foundations and activities that happen in this area. We need to take the lead on aligning with the WHO and the recognition that this entire schema is not geared towards health, but is geared towards control of people. And that's what I want to say to to regulators, lawmakers, please stand with us and take a lead, stand up on this, because this is where the world is heading. And the question is, are you behind? Are you ahead? Where are you at? And I guess the last thing I want to say, I was a Hempfest core member a number of years ago, and it's really amazing to see, to have an understanding of this, what the power of this festival, the blood, sweat, and tears that people have put in, people who've also passed away that we remember. We create a safe zone. We create a scenario where it is not, so many of these laws have created shame and guilt, internal shame. Even though you're not caught or you're not arrested, but you're still some way guilty. Even though you're not doing anything but potentially helping to improve your quality of life or your mood or relieving symptoms or having an alternative to alcohol, you still feel like you're ashamed of yourself, and you can't say it in public, and you have all these different structures that prevent you from doing this in the workplace, being in a community of people. We say, no, to hell with that. This space is a space where you just be. It's all good. Cannabis and humans, we have a relationship. All right, accept it. So that's the social engineering, the social mission that Hempfest has been able to do in a park in collaboration with the authorities in a most beautiful, Emerald City for all these years. And I think we wouldn't be anywhere at the international level, the national level, without what it's been doing, and I'm honored to have been some small part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aggarwal. Wonderful contributions to our community. It's really an honor to work with people like that and get to know them and see their work come so far over these years, and it's just awesome. So our next speaker, Giana Lampreda, has been navigating the industry that's been developing before our eyes. With the advent of 502, we've really seen the focus shift a little bit from being patient access focused and keeping people out of prison and jail to regulatory focused, sometimes profit driven. So Giana is the co-owner and founder of Wham Oil, which started in 2011 and specializes in clean, pure, flavorful concentrates. High quality products that work great for patients and recreational users alike. They've always been consistently developing groundbreaking technology with public safety at the top of mind. And so she's going to talk about what it's like to navigate being a patient and an advocate in the modern day movement, as well as the importance of pesticide-free medicine and high quality medical products that we still need access to. Here we go, Giana.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I think for me it's been a very conflicting experience navigating through this market, because I am a manufacturer, but I'm also a patient. I've been a patient since I was 10. I had debilitating pain that eventually led to my diagnosis of cancer. So ever since 2006 up until today, I've been in and out of remission. And so for me, my main passion has always been about patients and their safe access to medicine. Now, in 2012, Washington legalized the sale of cannabis. Prior to that, patients had the access and the will and the power to grow their own and make their own medicine. When 2012 came, basically they legalized cannabis, and it took the power from the patient and put it into the government's hands, and then they turned it into a commodity for profit. So today, it is very difficult to navigate through this market because there's so many people coming in with different products or growing different products. Many of them do not understand the complexity of growing safe, clean cannabis. And so you have a lot of different products out there that are cheaply made and just don't really know the quality. They're not very good quality, basically, because they're cheaply made. And My passion is pesticides. Right now, the issue, as you know, our food that we eat has pesticides. The air we breathe has pesticide, is polluted. We also have our water. And now we're finding that cannabis also is being grown with pesticides. Now, Washington State does not require producer processors to pesticide test their products before putting them in the market. They do, however, require that growers follow the Washington State Department of Agricultural list of pesticides allowable. So you have pesticides that are allowed, but they have to fall within a certain tolerance level. Okay, so if your product is randomly tested, because they don't require it, randomly tested and it tests positive for pesticides, but it falls below the level, you can still sell that product. Okay, so, but it still has pesticides, right? So my concern is that we have products out there that have pesticides. There's no regulation to require them to pesticide test, but from a manufacturer standpoint, it can be overly costly to have these products pesticide tested. As a patient, I want to know what I'm buying. What am I buying? Okay, so are you buying something that was grown with sustainable growing methods, or are you buying something that was mass produced? Okay, where it depletes the soil, requires pesticide sprays, you know? So what are we buying in the market right now? We don't know. So what I think we need to do is we need to legalize home grows. We need to take care of our own community, and that means that anybody that is growing their own can grow pesticide free, you know, can have their products the way they need them. But also, if you don't want to grow or you don't understand growing, you can still go to the, you know, to the retail store and buy your products, but at least know to ask for, you know, is this product pesticide tested? Because if you start to put more regulation on our industry on requiring pesticide testing, it could become really costly and put a lot of small businesses out. So we take care of our community by growing our own, educating the public about what products to buy. So we let the market decide what they want. We set the expectation on the products that we as patients want to get, or people that are consuming cannabis. We make that decision and we make that demand. Once we make that demand, then I believe that manufacturers and growers will have to change the way they grow. The way we grow, we have to change to sustainable farming methods. We already have a lot of companies out there that are doing that right now. So we create a community that is sustainable by using sustainable methods to growing smaller batches, quality products. And that is how I think that we could solve our problem. Not putting more regulation in our industry, because we're already overly regulated, but finding solutions. And that would be to educating the market about these products. So it's just been very hard for me, I have to be honest, because I have so much passion for patients, because I'm a patient, you know, but at the same time, I'm also a business owner that's trying to produce high quality products like CBD products so that people can buy clean, pure products. And right now, because we outsource a lot of our material from other farmers, we do pesticide test all of our products because we don't know what's in the market right now. So there's just not enough information. So it's been really frustrating for me because I want to support our community. You know, I want to support my compatriots, you know, that are growers, that are processors. I also want to support the patients and their needs and their to understand where they're coming from, because I come from that place. So what are you going to demand that we have? Home grows, better products. Ask for those high quality, better products. You know, is this pesticide tested? Ask questions. Make that demand. Don't buy, you know, something that is less than stellar, you don't understand, you don't know where it came from. You make the choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Giana. So Giana brings up a really important point about consumer power. The advent of the testing industry actually started before there was any regulatory requirements for testing. And it was because caregivers here in Washington State wanted to make sure they were giving safe products to their patients. And so a demand creeped up for industry testing. And that's how we ended up getting these kinds of things before there was ever even any regulation requiring that. So we do have a lot of power within ourselves as consumers, buying power to vote with our wallets and decide who we're going to support. Businesses like Giana or those that we know are putting pesticide-ridden products into our community. So another important thing I want to point out is that Michael Krawitz here has been doing a lot of the work at the World Health Organization and the United Nations, going to Geneva, Vienna. He's been all over the place doing the work there. So if you want to get more information about those international developments, he's a great person to talk to one-on-one after this. Our next speaker is Douglas Hiatt. He's going to talk about how, along with the new regulatory challenges and producing clean, safe products, there's a slew of new legal hurdles to navigate. You see, we legalized marijuana, but actually just complicated some other things that we hadn't really faced yet. There's always new and challenging terrain. Douglas has done so much work pro bono for this community. I cannot even emphasize how much he has committed of his life to helping medical marijuana patients, medical marijuana caregivers, people who are facing forfeiture, medical necessity defenses, child custody, landlord-tenant. I mean, every type of dispute you can think of, he's had to navigate in this terrain when it's federally illegal, state legal, quasi-legal, wherever it's been since 1998. And he's really smart about figuring out when to use behind-the-scenes, delicate negotiations, or being a little bolder and some innovative courtroom strategies, which is how we met. So without further ado, here's Douglas Hiatt.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. I wish that I had some optimistic news on such a beautiful day here for our 27th or so in a row Hempfest, but the legal news is not so great. And the fact of the matter is that we haven't really legalized anything. We've simply decriminalized an ounce of marijuana for adult use, and we've barely done that. We have a regulatory system that is not working. We have the reimposition of prohibition going on right now in King County, in the city. We have numerous problems that we are facing, and I count Vivian McPeak as a very close friend, and Viv and I were talking the other night, and we were like, this has never been about marijuana. This has always been about freedom, and it's still about freedom, and we are very, very, very far from being free. There is so much work left to do that the work that we've done so far, it makes it look like we haven't even started. In the city of Seattle right now, people are facing their homes being taken. Dan Satterberg and Pete Holmes, who will be speaking, here, I believe, later today and certainly tomorrow, have filed forfeiture actions to take the homes of people that grow marijuana. And they are filing criminal charges against people that are growing marijuana. And the reason for that is we did not change the goddamn law. We did not change the criminal law at all, except for decriminalizing 1 ounce. 1 ounce is not freedom. We do not have a market that works. We have overtaxation. We have ridiculous regulation, as Giana can tell you, and we still have medical prohibition, and we still have doctors facing trouble, as Sunil has told you. So I find myself asking, how much progress have we really made? And the answer is not nearly enough. We have much, much more to do to protect doctors, to protect patients, and to make sure, that people stay free. Because right now, we are in a situation where we are not free. In addition, the federal government is still involved in prohibition at a very high level. They're still sentencing 100 people a week in federal court on marijuana-related cases, usually growing. Because we are not legal and everywhere, we need legalization in every state, because as long as there is a state out there that is not legal, we have a problem, and we have the continuation of illicit markets, which allows the federal government to come in and make ridiculous arguments all over again. So we have got to change the federal law. We have got to change all federal laws relating to marijuana. We need the deregulation that Dr. Aggarwal was talking about, and we need it very badly. We are not getting it. We're not even close. So where are we in terms of changing these things and getting rid of this regulation and getting some meaningful regulations? They have a ton of regulations designed to prevent diversion, and we can't let marijuana get out. You know, I don't know what it's going to do if it gets out, but they are very afraid of that. So we've got it over-regulated like crazy. We are regulating marijuana like it is goddamn plutonium, and it has driven up the cost. The tax is ridiculous. Now the government is making, you know, huge amounts of money. The state of Washington's the largest marijuana dealer in the state now, and I don't like them. So myself, I personally still have my same old person that's been growing medical marijuana for a long time and doing a beautiful job of it, and I don't have to worry about pesticides, and I don't have to worry about bad stuff in the marijuana because I'm not involved in that system. And I won't be involved in that system because that system isn't working, as Giana just told you. So how do we get to where we need to go? And the answer is politics, like it always is, only now it's more important than ever. We have to get out there and vote. We have to look at other candidates, non-traditional candidates, to upset the apple cart to get this thing moving forward, because we are stuck right now. So Hempfest has been a tremendous agent of change for a really long time. They are concentrating on voter registration again, like we have in the past. We've registered hundreds of thousands of people to vote. We want to register everyone. There is no question. There are more of us than there are of them if we just stand up and get this motherfucker done. The political solution is where we need to go, and we need to go there this November. We cannot wait anymore. So take a look at the candidate running against Dan Satterberg. Take a look at Darren Morris. Next time Pete runs, take a look at who is opposing him. These people have presented themselves as progressives, and they are not. They have presented themselves as reformers, and they are not. They are restarting the war on drugs. They never took the funding away. I'm now involved in cases all over again, only this time they're trying to tell you that it's the Chinese mafia. It's not. It's the same old Chinese families that have been growing marijuana for thousands of years, using it as traditional medicine, who thought it was legal here, who have a problem. There's no, prevalence of Chinese mafia in Washington State or anything like it. It's good old-fashioned American racism coming right back around, right? You know what they call these objects? They call it the operation down in Grace Harbor, Green Jade. How's that? Nice and racist, huh? Courtesy of the DEA, the FBI, and local law enforcement. They sit around and they think up names like that. Isn't that great? You're paying for it. They're out there busting people again because they have the money to do so. When they take these forfeitures, they keep the money. They get to use the money. They get to drive around in the cars. This is wrong. And they're doing it right here. They're starting it all over again. It's just prohibition starting all over again. Because we're not really legal. We haven't changed the laws. We're not legal anywhere. And we haven't even talked about the 5 nanogram driving limit that I predicted would be, 10,000 DUIs instead of 10,000 misdemeanor possessions. Well, we're here. Kids under 21, absolutely ridiculous. Strict liability. They can't drive at all. Every Friday night in Eastern Washington, it's open season on kids. We have to change these things, and we cannot do that unless we are active politically, and it is time. We're out of time. We have got to act politically, and we have got to do it now, this year. There is no other year. This midterm election coming up is the most important election of our lives, and it has the potential to be the most important election ever held in this country. We have got to hold folks accountable, and we have got to make that change, and we got to make it happen now. Hempfest needs your help too. As Kari said, Hempfest has been going on for a long time, but Hempfest isn't free. It costs $750,000 to put this on. Every year the city fights us. Last night, this morning, we're fighting with corporations like Expedia, that want to shut this down, that don't want to cooperate with us. The city, every year, messes around and does not follow the law and give us a permit within 60 days. They never get us a permit. We don't have one right now. So the fact of the matter is, things aren't working. We need to make them work. We have got to support Hempfest. We've got to keep Hempfest going. People have got to put money in the pocket. If you got a rich uncle, get that guy down here and get his money in that bucket. Because we won't be here next year. I know you hear that every year, but God damn it, this year it's true. And I'm telling you, we have got to fight to preserve this little beacon of light, this little ray of hope. What one woman years ago wrote from the East Coast, bold and courageous Hempfest, you changed my life. This thing has changed a lot of people's lives, and it's changed the world in a lot of ways. We have to hold on to this precious part of Seattle. It's as precious as the showbox, and we need to save it. It's brought more meaningful change to more people than anything else in this goddamn town, and it's getting ground under the same forces that are grinding us all under. The forces of commercialization and profit and ruthless profit over people. We cannot have that any longer if we are going to live in this goddamn country. Please save Seattle Hempfest. Save it this year so that it can be here next year. Get out there and vote in November so that the goddamn country will be here next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Douglas. Always the passionate speaker. He's wonderful. Love working with him. So Seattle Hempfest, it really has shrunk. 2 years ago we had 6 stages. Last year went to 5, and this year we are at 4 stages. So know that he's serious when we say this can't exist if we don't find some way to keep it going. And it is absolutely integral to the Seattle lifestyle, the culture, what we represent here. People come from all sorts of states, internationally even, to speak here year after year. And you will hear that the speakers here and the guests here are treated better than any other sort of festival that has ever existed or will exist as far as the cannabis community. So we really want to keep this going. Also want to mention the panels. So we're going to have panels over the next 3 days here on these stages where you're going to hear a lot of the speakers that you've already heard here speak in depth about these topics for a lot longer than 5 minutes. Douglas also touched on a couple important things. One thing is the correct way and the wrong way to write legalization, decriminalization, descheduling. What is it? What term are we going to use? There are 2 really awesome laws out there that are great examples. One here in Washington State, which is the Cannabis Health and Beauty Aids Law. And that was written the right way. What it did was it removed those products from the Controlled Substances Act of the state of Washington. Therefore, there is no criminal penalty anymore for cannabis health and beauty aids. That is why you will see those products being able to be sold here, because they are completely no longer criminal products, and you won't see anything else being able to be done like that. On the federal level is a law called the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, and what that does is it says that the federal government, the DEA, the BOP, FBI, anyone involved in drug prosecutions, they cannot spend a single red cent of their allocated funds to interfere in state legal medical marijuana programs. And that has actually stopped a prosecution here in Washington State from happening. If you don't know about the Kettle Falls 5 and Larry Harvey, You should look that up because that law was written for that case and has stopped that prosecution and is now being used throughout the country as an example of how to do this law right. But there's still a lot of ground to cover, so much in fact. We still have people serving time for cannabis, both for medical marijuana and for other types of cannabis crimes. And you know, one person is one person too many. As Douglas talked about, there's a lot of reform with 502 that needs to happen. Everything from driving protections to public consumption, where we can use it. Home grows, as Giana mentioned. We're the only state with legal marijuana that doesn't have a home grow provision. The only place where you can't legally grow marijuana, you can only buy it from the corporations, right? So, and then there's all the civil rights stuff that it seems like nobody else is really talking about anymore, because now we're talking about how to regulate it, how to move forward in a new legal world, what type of regulation we want, what type of legalization we want. Meanwhile, people are still losing their jobs for marijuana. They're losing their housing over marijuana. They're facing medical discrimination every single day. You can be denied an organ transplant because you are a medical marijuana patient for no other reason than that, even in a state where it's legal. So you might want to be careful about how you talk about your cannabis use with your doctors. And since we were talking about speaking up and standing out, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, or in my belly, as it were, and being a pregnant woman who's a patient, and what that is like to navigate that legal terrain. Because let me tell you, I have faced a lot of activism. I've stood up to the feds. I've done a lot of things, passed a lot of laws. There is nothing that scares me more than the thought of my child being taken away because I'm a medical cannabis patient. In my state where I live, Montana, mothers are being denied the right to breastfeed their children when they are born because of cannabis in their systems. And so how do you continue to stand up in front of the press and the media and say, I am a pregnant woman who uses medical marijuana because my doctor said that is the best way for me to move forward, knowing that it could cost you everything? That's what it takes for all of us here. That's what Hempfest represents, a community where we can be honest about our use, where we can stand up and feel supported by our community. It's really important that we keep moving forward on these issues, because until all of that is solved, like Douglas said, we are not free. When children are being taken from their mothers, we are not free. When our family members are being locked up for following state law, we are not free. And he's exactly right, the way you tackle that. There's two ways. One is voting. We have to get new people in office, not just people who are writing legalization because it's popular. People who really believe in this as a human right. Turn the blue wave that we're riding right now into a green wave. And there's one other important thing. Y'all think jury duty is a big pain in the butt, nobody wants to do it. I'm here to tell you, you can make a huge difference in the way the laws are implemented in court just by serving on a jury. And it's not because you registered a vote that you get put in the jury pool. When you get a driver's license or a state ID, you get put in the jury pool. So don't deny yourself the right to have a voice because you think that you won't have to serve on a jury. You will. And when you get appointed to that jury, shut your mouth about your views on cannabis, get on that panel, and then vote not guilty, and use your conscience then. All these speakers are available for question and answer if you'd like to speak to them. And again, check out the panels throughout the next few days. This is a great place to learn everything you need to know about cannabis, and we are happy to provide it for you year after year. Thank you so much, everybody.